Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 minutes before 8 is the time. Let's come back to our conversation then about the heat wave. You don't need reminding, this country now facing 2 days of extraordinarily hot weather. So what is the advice? Let's turn to Conservative MP and Cabinet Office Minister Kit Malthouse, who joins us now. Good to have you on, sir. What are you urging people, my listeners, to do in this heat? Good morning.
Morning, Governor. Well, we are urging people to essentially be sensible themselves, carry water, stay out of the sun, keep as cool as they possibly can, but critically to look out for those groups who we think are most vulnerable to the heat. So that is very small infants, and in particular, elderly people, often living alone, who we know are more likely to succumb to the heat. And that people should do the neighbourly thing, and possibly knock on the door, check they're okay, they've got access to water, that they're keeping themselves cool and looking after themselves, and hopefully we'll get through things in good shape. In particular, though, also we're asking people to just be aware that there's likely to be disruption on the transport network, and that's going to impact their ability, some of them, to get to work. Now, obviously, those people who have to go to work will need to travel. If they're doing that, take water, all the usual stuff you would expect. But given that there's likely to be significant disruption, particularly on the rail network, that people need to bear that in mind, and if they are able to and it works for them, that they should think about working from home.
Mr. Malthouse, we've only just got them back into their office. Is it really wise to suggest they should all start working from home again?
Well, it's not a product of the weather. It's a product of the disruption on the transport network, Nick. And we recognise that some people are going to have difficulty getting to work because the rail operators, in particular, are concerned, shall we say, to see how the network reacts to this kind of heat. So, for example, trains are having to go a bit slower, so we don't have a buckled track and derailing, because fast trains put more pressure on the rail, and that will obviously cause some disruption. And so people just need to bear that in mind. I mean, Nick, many of us fly every summer, are lucky enough to fly, to find this kind of temperature elsewhere. So we sort of know what to do. Yes. But we've never had it here in this country. And so we just need to see how the system operates. And that's going to cause some disruption, which people need to bear in mind. But for example, we're saying that schools should stay open unless head teachers believe that there's a reason that they shouldn't, because we think kids are safer and better off in school. So it's just moderate, sensible stuff to cope with a hot 48 hours.
Yours is a very good point. Those of us fortunate enough to have a few quid, we do fly. How come the trains continue to operate in countries such as Italy, the south of France, Portugal? Why don't their rails buckle?
It's a good question, and it's because basically their systems are built to deal with that kind of temperature. Now, you will know, because I know you're of an engineering mindset, Nick, that there are tolerances built into equipment when it's put in place. Right, so it's about the strength of the metal, the types of the seals, how it's laid, all those kind of things. Now, the system may well cope. It may well work perfectly fine. But we know, as I said before, that fast trains put heavy pressure on the rails, and that, if you look at somewhere like southern Italy, where they have that kind of heavy temperature, the trains don't go possibly quite as fast as they do in the UK. So it's those kind of adaptations that we need to learn about in the next 48 hours, and all just be sensible and stay safe.
I understand you've chaired COBRA meetings concerning this. Do we really need a COBRA meeting for the weather, in all honesty? Are we not becoming a little bit of the nanny state? Are you not becoming Mary Poppins on the quiet, Mr. Malthouse?
No, look, Nick, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go. No, COBRA. What COBRA does is coordinate work across the whole of government, and just make sure that we are prepared and that we are then able to communicate a sensible public safety message out to the British public. Now, COBRA it's been called an emergency meeting. It's not necessarily dealing with an emergency. It's dealing with a period of concern where we need to make sure that the government is just stood up and ready. So, for example, we wanted to make sure that the 999 service has got the capacity it needs to cope over the next few days. We needed to decide about guidance for schools, about what they should do in a period of extreme heat, and we came to a conclusion about that. So it's kind of sensible planning and coordination that you would expect for the central government. It's not some kind of panicky, oh my God, here it comes. We're just getting ready.
Just lastly on this, though, but the French government doesn't have to do it. The Italian government doesn't have to do it. Why does the British government have to do it?
Well, as I say, the Italians are more used to this kind of weather, and we are not. The French, however, are not used to this kind of weather. And as you will remember,
well, the south of
back
France,
in, I think Well, back in 2003, they did have an 8-day heat wave of 40 degrees plus, and sadly, thousands and thousands of elderly people did die. I think from memory, something like 14,000. And so, we learn from that. We're not used to this kind of heat. And we just need to make sure that we are sensible and moderate and take care during the next 48 hours. The cooler air, we are told, will be here on Wednesday, and it'll be a period where we learn, but we just have to work together to get through it in good shape.
Lastly on this, then, the Prime Minister under attack for not attending Cobra meetings. Do you think he's guilty there? Should he have been at those meetings instead of, I understand, inviting friends and family to Chequers this weekend?
No, Nick, it's literally my job to chair Cobra. The Civil Contingency Secretariat sits in my department, and I briefed him personally yesterday morning at about 8 o'clock, just so that he could be clear that I'd done my job and that we were all stood up and ready. So I think it's a very unfair criticism. He appoints Secretary of State to do this kind of work, and that's what I've been doing.
OK. Can we talk about the state of the Conservative Party at the moment? You will have obviously, if you've had an opportunity to tune in to see some of your colleagues who want to lead the party, do you not think, broadly speaking, this is doing a bit of damage to the Conservative reputation, seeing 5 colleagues of yours fighting it out like this on primetime TV?
Well, I'm not sure that it is, Nick. I mean, this is what you want in any democracy, is a kind of vigorous exchange of ideas before you unite around a particular position and a particular person. We're looking for the leader of a G7 nation. The Conservative Party is a standing coalition where there's a wider view of policy in a particularly difficult moment for the country. So there should be no surprise that there's a vigorous exchange of ideas. I would imagine that you and James O'Brien have vigorous exchanges of ideas before you unite behind the LBC brand and promote your station. And the same is true with the Conservative Party. We're a family.
Yes, indeed. We don't do it on network TV, of course, Mr. Malthouse. This is the difference.
Well, the public deserve transparency. They deserve to see where the leaders are coming from,
all right,
and about how they can win the argument. And, the Conservative Party is a family.
Indeed.
Yes, there is a family disagreement, but eventually we'll all come back together again in peace and love and harmony to win the next election.
Well, Mr. Malthouse, I'm glad you agree that the public deserves transparency, because it now falls to me, I understand that not one of the recipients yet, so not one of the contenders yet, has been in receipt of the Malthouse endorsement. So now is the opportunity to find out who will be gaining. We remember the Malthouse Accord, which didn't quite get us over the hill a couple of years ago, but the Malthouse endorsement, to whom, which is the lucky recipient? Get Malthouse.
So, Nick, I haven't declared publicly, because I have this slightly old-fashioned view, Nick. You should listen to what people say before you decide to vote. And so I've been listening, and I watched some of the debates last night, and we've got another hustings today.
But you voted already a couple of times, Mr. Malthouse, haven't you?
I have voted a couple of times already, and I voted on the basis of what I've heard and listened. But obviously,
and so who was the lucky recipient of that vote?
It's a secret ballot, Nick. I'm not revealing at the moment. I have to tell you, in all honesty, I've got my head in dealing with these civil contingencies at the moment, and I'm listening.
But has it been the same person both times who's got your vote?
Nick, it's a secret ballot. I can't possibly.
I've got body. I'm going to read you 5 names. I've got the finest body language experts in the world watching this video.
No, Nick,
here come those names: Tom Tugendhat, Kemi Badenoch, Penny Mordaunt, Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss. No, he's like a poker player. He's not moved an iota, not at all.
Fine Conservatives all. Nick, when we vote, we're not even allowed to take our mobile phones in when we vote, so that we can't photograph our ballot paper to prove how we vote. It's a secret ballot, Nick, and I have to respect that, I'm afraid.
Good talking to you. Let's hope that your wise words ensure the country gets through this heat as well as they can. Kit Malthouse appearing here on LBC. Just coming up to 8 o'clock. News is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From